We all know that coping skills are things we should have. We do them when we feel bad and they make us feel better. But what happens when our coping skills don't work? Or what if they end up making us feel worse? What do we do then? Today I want to share 6 coping skills that are keeping you stuck where you don't want to be. It's important to know that coping skills are ever changing, meaning that just because one thing worked for us last time doesn't mean that it will help our current situation. Which is why it's important to regularly, like every couple of months or so, assess your list of coping skills. See what fits and what doesn't. This means that we need to try out our old go-tos again to make sure that they're still effective. Sometimes we can kind of poop out on a few of them, and it's important to know that before we need to use them. And we will need to have multiple coping skills that help us in our time of need. So if one doesn't do the trick, we have another one to lean on. Additionally, when we're working on ourselves in therapy, our needs may shift. As we fight to adjust our behaviors for the better, the things we need to feel better can change too. For example, consider Anne. She grew up with an alcoholic father and emotionally absent mother, and came to therapy because she felt like she was always walking on eggshells trying to please everybody else. At first, the coping skills that worked were checking her facts before jumping to conclusions, assuming everyone was mad at her, and challenging those automatic thoughts through journaling. She also found going for a walk with her dog to be calming and get her out of her head a bit. But as she learned how to place and uphold boundaries, she didn't assume everyone was angry at her as often. And she had actually learned how to say no when she needed to. Wouldn't that be amazing? Therefore, her helpful coping skills didn't really help her anymore. She had to find new ones to help her with the current challenges she was facing. Our needs can also shift depending on what we're experiencing. Let's take Ian, for example. He came into therapy for help with his anxiety and panic attacks. He always felt keyed up and on edge. And doing a full body shake and dunking his face into cold water, it helped calm him down, and it could also prevent a panic attack from happening. He used these 2 coping skills almost every week, but recently he found himself feeling less anxious and instead more depressed. He struggled to get out of bed and was isolating more than usual. His tried and true skills weren't helping him with his down mood, so he had to find new ones that worked to offset the depressive symptoms he's feeling now. Now that we understand why coping skills need to exist, and why they can change over time, let's jump into the 6 that could be holding you captive in a place you don't want to be. And starting off with number 6, distracting constantly, or what we could call over-distraction. Distractions are helpful because they can help calm us down enough to engage with more process-based coping skills, things like journaling or impulse logs. But if we are only doing that, or doing this distraction stuff all the time, we never actually face what's bothering us, and it can end up getting worse. This could be things like watching a ton of TV, playing video games for hours, keeping yourself overly busy at work or with social activities. While at face value, these things aren't bad for us, by not leaving any time to actually work through or even acknowledge our experience, we're just stuffing it down. 5 is isolating because we feel overwhelmed. I know the urge to do this can be strong, especially if we have an avoidant style of attachment. Many of us can worry that we are too much for people to handle, or that it's not safe to tell people how we're really doing, or maybe that we're the toxic one in our relationships if we share what we're really going through. Now, I'm not advocating for us to trauma dump or overshare, but there isn't anything wrong with asking someone if we can vent or share with them, and then if they say it's okay, doing that. Humans need connection. It's in our biology. It's in the way our bodies and our nervous systems were created. To ignore that is going to only make us feel worse. Trust me, since we moved to Austin, I've been struggling to find my people. And when I tell you that feeling like I don't belong, it's been one of the most uncomfortable and dysregulating experiences I've had in a long time. We need each other. And it's okay to feel like we need to have people around. It's healthy to have people to share with. So do some opposite action and reach out instead. You got this. Number 4, relying on others completely. I know you feel like I just told you one thing and now I'm telling you that that was a lie, but healthy coping skills are all about balance. We can't isolate ourselves from others and expect to feel better. Also, we can't rely completely on people to help us get through either. I know this one is hard for my more anxiously attached individuals, but when it comes to working on ourselves, we have to be able to rely on our own abilities. Sure, we can reach out for support, we can see a therapist and build up a great support system. But the true growth and learning comes from having the urge to act in an old, unhealthy, but comfortable way and choosing to do something different. We can't expect other people to do that for us. No one can help us more than we can help ourselves. In fact, the real truth about therapy is that we, as patients, have all the answers and tools. Our therapist just helps us find them. Remember that. Number 3, ruminating on past upsets or events. Now, I feel this one, and I know it's not easy to stop. It could be fueled by our anxiety, but it's something that we do to cope or soothe. So let's talk about it. We often believe that thinking something through a few times is going to help us better understand it or ensure that we don't make the same mistake twice. And while you are correct that we should think things through, some of us can get caught in that loop. And it can start out as just making sure everything is good or understood, but we can quickly lose control and find ourselves laying awake at night, thinking and rethinking about that upcoming decision or uncomfortable conversation that we know we have to have. This can be something we do outwardly through repeated conversations with our friends or even with our therapist. It's like we're ruminating out loud, talking about the same issue over and over again. While it can be helpful and healing to talk something through or vent about a situation, it's not going to feel any better to play it over and over and over again. Ruminating inwardly or outwardly is like treading water in a pool. Sure, it helps keep us afloat, but it would be much better if we were swimming towards the edge. Number 2, shopping and overspending. The interesting thing about retail therapy is that it does actually make us feel better. I know, I was doing research about this, it blew my mind. According to the Cleveland Clinic, when we purchase items we truly love, it can help us feel more in control of our life and elevate our mood. It can also be a great distraction from any uncomfortable emotions that we're experiencing. But this serotonin hit, that feel good, only lasts for a few days at most. And then we have to do it again, which is why it can push us into overspending and into intense credit card debt, or even end up making us feel worse. An interesting thing I found when researching this is that we get the dopamine hit from shopping even before we actually purchase the things we want. So filling up a cart, loving what's in it, and then Xing it out gives us the same benefit. So faux shop away, I say. But seriously, this can become an addiction. So be careful, because that addiction can lead to more stress and anxiety than we had before. So just be mindful of this one. And finally, number 1, having too many coping skills. I will admit, when I was first in therapy as a teenager, one of my homework assignments was to not fully do my homework assignment. What? I was such a perfectionist that it was eating me up and ruining my relationships and really ruining my life. I wanted to get an A in therapy, if that's even possible, and spoilers, it's not. But that's part of the reason why us doing too much can backfire and make us feel worse. Needing to be perfect or have all the coping skills can be an anxiety or people-pleasing response, and it ends up affirming the behaviors that brought us to therapy in the first place. Not to mention that having all these coping skills can make it impossible to figure out which one to do when we start feeling bad. It's like the olden days when we'd walk around a Blockbuster looking at all the movie options and we say to our partner or friend, which one would you want to watch? And then they would say, I don't know, which one do you want to watch? It's infuriating and it gets us nowhere. So be ruthless when you're putting together your top 5 skills and then your next 5. Leave it there. There's no need to write down 75 of them. Just make sure that you can do some of them in the middle of the night too. I know finding ways to cope can be hard, but I hope this at least gave you an idea of what to look out for or avoid when putting your own skills list together. And if you're looking for more ideas of things to do, check out my video 25 coping skills. I will link it in the description and you can search for it on YouTube as well. Have a wonderful week and I'll see you next time.